What is going on, guys? It is WrestleMania here, back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including WWE smear campaign backfires, Sasha Banks was furious with the WrestleMania snub, her first public appearance, CM Punk stands with Sasha Naomi's walkout, The Rock's WWE return looking very likely, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also check out WrestleMania.co.uk and our non-wrestling channel, Incredible. But now let's hit the intro and get straight into our first story. Now, first story looks at WWE smear campaign backfiring. Now, our top story today takes a look at WWE smear campaign against Sasha Banks and Naomi and how it's completely backfired on them. Following Banks and Naomi's walkout on Raw on Monday, WWE have made it their mission to tarnish the names and reputation of both superstars. This week on SmackDown, WWE announced that both Banks and Naomi had been suspended. They had also been stripped of the WWE Women's Tag titles, their merchandise had been pulled from WWE shop, their Facebook pages have been removed, and they have been removed from the WWE intro. WWE have uploaded the segment containing Michael Cole announcing the suspension to their YouTube channel, and so far the upload has 26,000 dislikes. Yeah, we know that dislikes can't be shown, but you can see them with a Chrome extension. WWE is trying to tarnish the names of both women, but fans aren't falling for it. Banks and Naomi are two insanely popular talents and fans will support them no matter what. WWE have an established history of making talents who walk out on the company look bad, from Stone Cold Steve Austin in 2002 to CM Punk in 2014. Vince McMahon finds it incredibly disrespectful when talents do this, and it's extremely hard for the talent in question to rebuild that relationship with Vince McMahon. McMahon even described superstars walking out as one of the worst things a talent can do back in 2002, and it appears as if this ideology hasn't changed over the past 2 decades. What do you guys think of WWE's smear campaign against them? What do you think of WWE removing them on all of these things? Are they justified in their actions, or is their conduct completely uncalled for? Let us know in the comments down below. Next up, Sasha Banks makes her first public appearance since her walkout. Now, it's fair to say Sasha Banks and Naomi have been the talk of the wrestling industry this week, but in relation to Banks, it appears as if she's completely unscathed by the increased publicity. This weekend, Banks appeared on stage at a Steve Aoki concert, so it looks like Banks is living her best life and isn't letting the current situation get her down. If Banks ends up leaving WWE due to this situation, it's possible that she signs with the rival promotions such as AEW or even explores new acting ventures. Banks appeared in the hit Disney Plus show The Mandalorian, and this is likely opening the doors for several big acting opportunities if Banks does decide to explore that avenue. It's also possible that Banks and WWE come to some kind of solution to their internal conflict, as Banks has walked out of WWE before and has eventually returned on good terms. Next up, Sasha Banks was furious with WrestleMania snub. Now, according to Dave Meltzer, WWE's creative plans for Sasha Banks and Naomi were finally the tipping point which forced Banks to walk out. Meltzer claims that Banks was already upset with WWE due to her match at WrestleMania 38 being cancelled. Initial plans for WrestleMania called for Banks to challenge Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's title. However, when Ronda Rousey returned to WWE in January, these plans quickly changed. Ronda virtually took Banks' spot, and this was something that didn't sit well with the boss, as in Sasha Banks. WWE had planted the seeds for Banks vs Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, and fans were on board with this match taking place. They hoped that this match would culminate with Banks securing the victory and once again winning the women's title. There were also reports that Banks was set to meet Rousey for the SmackDown Women's title at Hell in a Cell, but Banks clearly wasn't a fan of these creative plans, and this contributed to her walking out. With Banks vs Rousey being off the cards for Hell in a Cell, it's unclear who Rousey will face at WWE's next premium event. The SmackDown Women's division doesn't have the strongest roster currently, so WWE may have to go back to the drawing board with their women's division. Next up, CM Punk stands with Sasha and Naomi. Now, the majority of WWE superstars have been reluctant to share their thoughts on the current situation between Banks and Naomi. Naturally, if WWE talent decides to side with them, it could seriously impact their position at WWE and could ruffle a lot of feathers. While this is true, there are certain talents in WWE who will be able to get away with supporting their two popular superstars and not face any repercussions. Talents such as Roman Reigns and Randy Orton are virtually untouchable, and if one of them took to social media to tweet support for them, WWE would have limited options. A current AEW star, CM Punk, took to Twitter yesterday to declare his support of Banks and Naomi. The former champion tweeted, "Doesn't matter if your opinion of your coworker is positive or negative, stand with them, because they'll do the same thing to you and you'll wish someone helped. Trust me, you're expendable. Together, you're unstoppable." Now, this is great to see, as Punk has always been known for supporting talents to stand up to authority, as after all, Punk practically made it famous when he walked out of WWE in 2014. He walked out due to creative differences and severe burnout, and his situation back in 2014 actually appears to be rather similar to Banks and Naomi's situation. Now, Punk is set to meet Adam Page for the AEW World title at Double or Nothing pay-per-view next Sunday. Next up, SummerSlam's worrying ticket sales. This year's SummerSlam is set to take place on Saturday, July 30th from the Nissan Stadium in Nashville. Due to SummerSlam taking place in a stadium, they'll be expecting to sell a substantial number of tickets, but so far, ticket sales aren't looking too great. According to WrestleTix on Patreon, the show sold 22,519 tickets, and there are still 11,915 left. Now they're going to have to advertise some huge matches to shift those extra tickets, as the show is just only 2 months away. It was reported a number of days ago that WWE is looking to book the undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton on the show. It also looks like Brock Lesnar is still advertised for the show, but there are no substantial rumors surrounding who Lesnar will face. There's also the possibility of John Cena returning and facing Austin Theory. But in regards to Lesnar, who would you like to see him face at SummerSlam? Let us know in the comments down below. Next up, Will Ospreay rules out a WWE run. Will Ospreay has been one of the top stars in New Japan for a number of years now, and fans have to be wondering if Ospreay will eventually have a run in WWE. But according to him, he has no plans to join WWE and is perfectly happy in New Japan Pro Wrestling. During a recent interview at Wrestling's, he revealed, "I have no aspirations of going to WWE at all. It's not because of the product or anything, I'm not a fan of it, I will happily say, but my lifestyle, I never wanted to be a big star pro wrestler. Japan allows me to do a tour and come home and live my family life. If anybody has ever spent more than a couple of days with me, family to me is everything. I love my mom, I love my dad, no shame in saying it. I love my nan and granddad, and will bend over backward and fold myself in half for those guys. If you're a part of that friend circle that I consider family, I'll do the exact same thing. It's important for me to have those breaks away from wrestling to be able to live that life, because one day I wish to be like my dad or granddad or even my mom, because they are people that made me. I want to do that one day." And finally, The Rock's WWE return looking likely. Our final story today takes a look at some exciting news regarding the possibility of The Rock returning to WWE next year. During the latest Wrestling Observer Live, Brian Alvarez noted how The Rock has no movie commitments for the first quarter of 2023, and this actually frees him up for a potential match at WrestleMania 39. Alvarez stated, "He's going to do 0 movie commitments for the first quarter of 2023, which would allow him to do WrestleMania without having to worry about movie commitments and also have the time to launch the first season of the XFL. So actually, the timing for doing a WrestleMania match would be excellent this year, because he has 2 different projects which would require him to take time off from movies." Now, while this doesn't officially confirm that The Rock will return, it does seem strange that one of the busiest men in Hollywood has emptied his schedule for WrestleMania season. It's entirely possible that The Rock has finally committed to a WWE return, and a WrestleMania 39 showdown with Roman Reigns is on the horizon. But there you have it, folks, the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below. I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.